Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Pillar to Post. I am Rashaun Alleyne, and I'm joined as always by Kobia Hamblin. And Kobia, we have finally made it to the big one, the race day that everyone circles on their calendar every year. The first Saturday in March, it's the Sandelane Barbados Gold Cup race day, and it features the Grade 1 Sandelane Barbados Gold Cup. It's the 43rd edition, and it co-features the Grade 1
Most
Sandelane Spa
wonderful time
Sprint Stakes
of
and
the
Trophy.
year.
It's the 21st edition of that race. So these two co-features run off on the 7th of March, and it's going to be an exciting day.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. At least for us as Bajan horse racing enthusiasts. Yeah, we have two features. Rather, let's call it three, because we do have the babies of tomorrow. But specifically to mention, as we said, we have the Gold Cup and the Spa. Just shy of a full field in the Gold Cup, a full field in the Spa. And Rashaun, I really want to get down to those, so let's get straight into it. Let's start with race number one, the Green Monkey Trophy Handicap, going 9 furlongs. This is for horses going 35 and lower. And Rashaun, if I'm going to be blank honest with you, I feel like I see this race every race day, and it's always just going a different distance. And it's always between the sprinters like Fool Me Not and so on going 5.5. But when we come 9, you know I'm going to pick my girl 17 million US. I can look no further than her.
Yeah, she is the class of this field. There are other horses rated the same as her, but she's a midsummer winner. She's got it. She's got it all. And obviously, it will be easy in a field like this at 9 furlongs with a little moisture in the track. And at the weight, 126 pounds, that isn't a big deal to pick her. I'm gonna go elsewhere with number one, Wall Street. Again, I respect 17 million US, so I wouldn't be surprised if this goes in the favor of you, right, Zata? But Wall Street last
Mhm.
time out on Boxing Day finished fourth behind Detente and was right behind 17 million US. And looking at Wall Street, who's making this move from last for his new connections, the Maynards, I think he was much better than 17 million US in this spot. No one was beating Detente, don't get me wrong, but every corner that he turned, there was an issue. And I feel like a clearer run gets him to be beating 17 million US. There was a £5 difference on that day. Now he's going to be receiving £10 from 17 million US. So I think that is enough to turn the tables. And 9 furlongs shouldn't be an issue. So I like Wall Street in this spot over 17 million US. And then I'm going to take number 6, Zora, who puts the blinkers on. Ricky Walker gets on board. I think the plan here should be go to the lead and try to steal it. Because also, when you look through Zora's past performances, not very exposed, only 10 starts, has won a race before. And then you see Dr. B, who we're going to get to later in the card, Nostradamus, Raconteur, the entire Triple Crown winners right there. And Heroes Day, who's very solid in the race we're going to get to after this. So I think Zara could be an upset place. I'm going to go 1, 5, and 6 to kick off Gold Cup Day.
Okay, Rashawn. Well, when I look back for my winner's last winning effort, this dates back to the 15th of November 2025. And as I would have mentioned, this race runs so frequently. Running second and third in this particular race is the same Wall Street and Rush, going 9 furlongs again. So if I've seen it before, I can see it again. And I see 17 million US. She may not be able to go on the lead like she did here, but I can see where she's going to bully this field, and I can see where she should be winning easily. Again, by far the best horse in this field, the class, at least I should say the class horse, not necessarily the best horse in this field. Things happen on the day. Um, on my second line, I went with Wall Street. I inverted your forecast. But to finish out my top three, I went with Rush, who would have finished third here in this race. Again, just repeating this same um, trifecta once more. 70 million into Wall Street, into Rush. That's my try for race number one.
Yeah, so not very creative to open the day. We're going to move on to race number 2, the Country Club Trophy Handicap, where we're going to go with the same two horses to bring you the Zato.
And I think, Rashawn, this is a similar situation to race number one, where we're basically just going on consistency. This is ideally the same race as Boxing Day, when these horses would have met going 10 furlongs and Valiant would have been able to hold off a headstrong, priceless coming for home. This was their Tanglewood prep. This was the race to show who has it from who doesn't have it, and Valiant went from pillar to post. Again, I can see this race going exactly the same way once more. Heroes Day is also in the race. Raconteur is also in the race. Almost a repeat of race number one, a very similar situation once more.
No, I can see this race going the exact same way, like you. So that's why I have it 2, 9, 6, and 3. I think obviously Valiant was a little disappointing in the Tanglewood, but that bunch of them that ran third, even second Hello World to seventh, weren't very far apart. So I think Valiant got a trip that he probably wasn't the most comfortable with, not being able to go to the lead and dictate. But in that replay we showed, and in this race, it's projected to be a race that he can control. So with Rashid Hughes probably putting 4 or 5 pounds overweight, so the weight is going to be fantastic for him. And this is a horse that when he gets to the lead, he refuses to be passed. So I see it the same way you do. We have the same 4 horses. We're not getting clever. Again, if the track is straying away from firm and it's good to firm and we get some moisture continuing, Raconteur really likes that, and he has the class. Also disappointing in the Tanglewood, but we draw a line through that and hope that here in this time for long race he can fire. And then I'm going to take number 3, Phil Morris, to round it out. Again, this is a struggle for me to find the 4th place horse, because there's horses like Heroes Day, Fantastic Shantae might light the 10 furlongs, but might not step up in class and perform as well. So I'm going to go Phil Morris, just who I know would probably want to dictate, but I think would be good enough for 4th if he doesn't get to the lead.
So, Rashaun, we move on to race number 3, the Bajan Blue Restaurant Trophy, going 7.8. This is for 3-year-olds and 3-year-olds only, West Indian bred 3-year-olds. Now, we only have a field of 5. But again, it's not a very deep race per se. I think all the attention, rightfully so, is going to go on to horse number 6, Flying Jenny. 2 starts, 2 wins, 2 impressive wins at that. And I don't see anybody in this field denying her win number 3. Ariel, who I have as my 2nd place horse, I want to throw away her last race. I think all of her other efforts were very impressive, bar Boxing Day, of course. She ran into a ton of trouble. But, I mean, I can't forget where this horse has come from. I can't forget that she was basically the best filly until Flying Jenny came around. That I'm sticking with my forecast of 6 and 2. I have 4 as my 3rd place horse. Atara, it was pretty hard to choose a 3rd place. You know, almost anybody can run 3rd, but I'm very, very stuck on this talented filly, Flying Jenny.
Yeah, I think Flying Jenny will take some beating. Obviously, my initial reaction is to try to see if I can get her beaten. But on Boxing Day, her 2-year-old career, she was running 137, which is 2 seconds faster than anybody else's run. Even at 3, and that's even faster than Oyers Princess, who I'm going to take on my 2nd line. On Flying Jenny, why I was interested in and inclined to bet against her is her form wasn't necessarily franked. She beat Ariel in Ultrasound and Field of Grey, and those first 2 came back into hopeful and were beaten by a maiden and a Tara. Now, I didn't necessarily love that. I would have wanted Pavlova out of that. She was very green and very game in the end to hold on to 2nd so closely. So I didn't necessarily love the 3, 2, 3, and 4 Pavlova scratch. Relentless, the way that he won, didn't necessarily wow me. He was being closed down by Barnabas late, and then he didn't finish out his first start at 1570, so I'm not sure how good or how much he wants to stay. So then I went with number 5, Oyers Princess. That's just the process of elimination. I will say she looked a lot better in the flesh. Yeah, she looked a lot better in the flesh, Kobia, when she broke her maiden last time out, and she ran to it. So maybe the light bulb has gone on, and Oyers Princess could prove to be a real competitor to Flying Jenny. But Flying Jenny's just done nothing wrong. And this field is small, so I find it very hard to see a trip in where she will be beaten. And maybe to Gold Cup Day is not the day to go against her. So we'll see. We both agree on Flying Jenny, but that's how I think it's going to shake out for the Bajan Blue Restaurant.
Signing up for BTC Bets is very easy. Go to BarbadosTurfClub.org. Scroll down to Start Betting. Click Sign Up for a free account and fill out the form. Check your email for the verification code and enter it. Create a personal password and PIN, and you're all set to start betting.
I'm And we move on to race number 4. It's the Monkey Club Restaurant Trophy Handicap. It's an oversubscribed field going 1,570 meters for 60s and lower Kobia.
Yeah, Rashaun. This is the beginning of the harder races to handicap because I had quite a time going through these races. Now, ultimately, I did end up with horse number 12, Mystique, and I'm following her upward trend in the scale. You know, since switching owners, she has had 3 wins from 4 starts. I don't think the new connections could ask for anything better. You know, her last start, 17th of January 2026, she would have faced the 60s and lowers. Now, in this race, she cuts back again to 60 and lower, going the same exact distance. You know, some of the same horses were in the previous race, and Mystique swallowed these up with absolutely no issues whatsoever. Now, another horse that I have in my top 5 is Luscious. Luscious, I have on my second line, was actually second here to Mystique once again. And looking through the field, going through the field, I don't see anybody stopping 2 of these from running 1-2 again. You know, Delicious Angel does take mention, does take a bit of credit in this race. She does deserve some respect as well as War Party. But I think the 2 of these are the 2 standout horses specifically. Mandarin Oriental, I want to like him so much, but he just does not have the turn of foot that I am looking for, Rashaun.
Yeah, with Luscious and Mystique, these are 2 of the fillies, as you said, that are trending upward at the track, and the sky's the limit for them. The last time these 2 faced, Mystique and Luscious, I thought Luscious was the horse that probably is better, but in that scenario, Mystique got 10 pounds from Luscious, where she only beat her by 2 1/4 lengths. Now that she's only receiving 4 pounds, I think it's enough to turn the tables. So I'm going to go Luscious on top.
4 pounds.
Yeah, but 10 pounds and you only beat her by 2 1/4, I think 4 pounds is enough to turn the tables. And
Okay.
I'm gonna put both of them underneath of Drogon, who is making his return. I think Antonio Perch is gonna get this one right tuned up for Gold Cup Day. He came off the bench last time out to sprint with the 65s and lower. Now he's dropping back to 60 and going 1570, a trip that he wants to go. I didn't show the replay, and I'm not going to go digging for a win for Drogon, but he is one of the class horses in the field, rated 56.
But
But
is
in
he
that
class
sprint,
going 7.8 is my problem with Drogon.
well, I think in this spot, it's fine enough because I think a mile, 9 furlongs, he's good either way. Probably the farther the better, but I think he can handle himself going 7.8. The last time out, he came out off the bench very fresh and showed some really good gate speed and was sitting on the pace and just faded late. He wasn't beating terribly for a horse that doesn't want to sprint. So I'm willing to take a risk on a forgotten Drogon because remember, this is a Drogon that won 4 in a row at one point. So I think as long as Antonio Perch gets him close to that version of himself, he will be very tough. I like Luscious and Mystique both as horses, and I think they will be very competitive in this spot. And then on my 4th line, I'm going to take number 9, Mandarin Oriental, with Jalon Samuel exiting the Tanglewood. This is a horse that's bred to be good, and he ran really good racing in the Triple Crown. Now just trying to recalibrate and find his footing again. And I think this is a field that he could find it with. Obviously, the 126 pounds, like with Luscious, is a question mark as he has to distribute weight to Drogon and Mystique. So I think that's what's going to make this race very interesting with how competitive it can be.
Okay, Rashaun. Points taken. We're gonna skedaddle onto the old 9 trophy. For horses 3-year-old and older, 50 and lower. And we're actually gonna go sprinting 5 flat, speed to burn. From the time you get out the gates is 110%. Now my winner lands on horse number 4. Actually, the horse that won this race a calendar year ago. And I think just as last year went, this year needs to go once more. Get out and go. Now, I think she's going to appreciate the apprentice claim from Blackett, taking 7 pounds off the 130. That isn't much of a concern for me, specifically sprinting, but anything off the bat quite helps.
Yeah, Leah, obviously, she won this race last year, but she hasn't really shown this since. She's run 7 races since. She's got 1 good second behind Fantastic Shantae, but where has this version of Leah gone? Obviously, if you're drawing a line through the last start where she was nowhere finishing 7th, and her last time out is good behind Fantastic Shantae, but not really a fan of Leah coming here. The claim, she is at the top of the class, but I'm going to take Dorcas on top. And this is also a horse who you're trying to round back into some form, and these are horses that beat Leah last time out, by the way. And Dorcas and Binary Code. First off, I know Binary Code beat Dorcas last time they met behind premise, and on that
Mhm.
day there was what 1 pound between them, where Dorcas took 117 pounds and Binary Code took 118. Now there's going to be 13 pounds between them. Thorpe takes 5 off 122. Knights is going to go full weight at 130. And with the speed, I think Dorcas made a really good run in this race and ultimately flattened out with Rashid Hughes. Maybe if Thorpe can hold her together and come with one closing run, a half or furlong shorter, Dorcas would be able to run a big race here, right behind one of the horses that's in the best form of his life in premise. Binary Code, I love the draw. I just think distributing the weight might be a tall task. But again, when you're at the top of a class bracket, you have to do these things. So maybe Binary Code could defy the weight. Then I'm going to go number 9, Espresso, the maiden. Now, this one is coming in with some hype, like Charisma, I guess, in her races as well. And I took this one because, and you have to stay with me on this one. I think she just ran second.
I'm trying, but I'm falling off, man.
Stay with me on this one. Just ran second to How You Do. And if you watch that race, How You Do was lucky to win that race. Espresso had trouble from the time the latch was sprung and was so game to get so close to finish second. I think if you think back to How You Do's race before winning that race was an open company sprint behind Fantastic Justice, and How You Do held his own. So now Espresso is going into open company with horses that are worse than that. And I think she was better than How You Do, and How You Do did that in open company. I have to think that Espresso is going to be fine in open company at a lower rate. Then I'm going to go number 8, Ollivander, came off last time out and probably knocked some rust out off, and I think we'll get a good trip. And then number 6, Rare Nickel. I love the weight, 113 pounds. This is a horse that ran huge and got promoted 7 pounds a couple starts ago. So 2 starts ago, actually. So coming back to a sprint distance after routing last time, I'll put Rare Nickel to round up my top 5. And I just have to note, I recognize your wife is in here, and that's number 2, Thunder Lady. And I know this race goes through her. If she gets comfortable, she's loose at 115 pounds with Ricky Walcott. But I just don't know with Fulminant if Thunder Lady can get away and be comfortable, because Fulminant is just as fast as Thunder Lady, in my opinion.
I don't even think Thunder Lady's biggest issue is necessarily Fulminant. I think it's more so Binary Code. Coming from the one box, going 5 flat, the only choice you have is to go. And we both know how fast Binary Code is.
He
Now,
can't keep up with Thunder Lady. You think he can?
that's my personal
Yeah,
opinion.
we'll see.
I don't think there's an issue with him keeping up. Some may say that Thunder Lady is on the lower part of the rating scale, maybe even outclassed. I don't think it's necessarily that far, but there's too much speed up front. I think Binary Code, Leah, Ollivander, Fulminant. I think there's too much confusion for a horse like Thunder Lady, because she's not one that can sit off the pace. If she doesn't get the lead, she's not giving you anything. I think that's her biggest problem, and I think that's why she's not on my first 4. Leah, as I would have mentioned before, is my winner. I think she and Binary Code should be putting a gap in this field and leading this field rather easily. On my third line, excuse me. On my third line, I went with horse number 7. Let It Be Me has been there or thereabout within her last few starts, and I simply can't ignore the form that she's coming into. Being competitive with this field is one thing, but having pace to run on at, that I can see that's what she wants, is something completely different. To add to my 4th line is horse number 8, Ollivander, another closer who's, as you would have mentioned, knocked off some rust recently. You know, he was in some brilliant form and he disappeared for a little bit. And Thunder Lady, you mentioned my wife, well, she closes out my top 5. I think that's the best that she's going to finish. I think in another world where she has 115 and they're going 5.5, no question, I'm picking her. But 5 flat is just that much different from 5.5 here in Barbados.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very competitive race for our first high 5 race on the card. So we'll see how the old 9 trophy handicap goes. And then we're going to move on to race number 6. It's the Sandelane Sweet Trophy handicap, going 1,570 meters for 3-year-olds and older maidens rated 50 and below. And there's just some horses where it's the same narrative over and over. We talked about Oyas Princess in her last start, where it feels like now is the time. We've said this for Charisma time and time again. now has to be the time.
While we said it for Oya Princess about what 4-5 different races,
Right.
I think we're actually at 4 or 5 different races for Charisma as well. And something a line I've actually heard recently. Sometimes we live on the potential of others, but you have to accept reality for what it is. I'm not
Yeah,
accepting
sometimes
reality. I'm sticking with Charisma.
same. Sometimes like potential could only last for so long. At some point, you just have to believe them for who they are. And I still think Charisma is good, and it's hard
Yeah,
that she has yet to break her maiden. I think this race is just, as they say, anything that could go wrong will go wrong, and that's just Charisma. What can go wrong will go wrong, and she ran really well in this race to finish second behind Night Racer, who got a peach of a ride again, where Charisma moved early and moved wide, and Night Racer was just patiently ridden and got the last run and was able to down Charisma. I don't know what they should do here. Clearly, no one knows. It's just a matter of figuring out how Rashid Hughes can get this horse to cross the line first. I think she's definite. It's not a question. She is definitely the horse to beat. It's not like she's running poor races. She's just not winning. And two
yeah.
back behind Octavia Sienna, she was best in that race as well. So honestly, you either single Charisma or you take so much support with Charisma, but it's her race to lose.
As you mentioned, if you're playing the pick six, it's either you single Charisma or you play all.
Okay.
It's pick one of the two. But Charisma is the horse that stands out in this race. I want to find a way to beat her. I can't find a way to beat her. I hope she doesn't find a way to beat herself. On my second line, I did go horse number 7, Elevate. Elevate moved into Sean Hall's hands recently, and we've seen what he can do with horses he acquires with a bit of problems. Hopefully, this is one that can go on the upward scale along with the others. There are a few 3-year-olds in the race, Undeniable and Cotton Reel, just to mention. Undeniable at 107 pounds is super attractive. Undeniable at 107 pounds is really, really hard to ignore. But I think Charisma and Elevate stand out just that much more, especially with the experience they have on Undeniable. And Lovebug to close out my top 4. Lovebug, I'd love to put you a bit higher, but this horse hasn't quite given me a reason to. 119 pounds, Ricky Walker is going to do 107 on Undeniable very comfortably. So to give away 12 pounds to Lovebug and me, put that in front of put it in front of Undeniable is a little hard to do, but 12, 7, 3, and 2 is where I stand, and that's where I stand on business.
Yeah, I think you make a good point with Undeniable at the 107 pounds. This is a horse that could end up in the Derby. So when you're looking here, Charisma giving 15 pounds to this colt might be hard. I think that she is definitely going to have to run one of the best races of her life to beat Undeniable. I'm going to take the 2 3-year-old second and third Undeniable with Cotton Reel. I love that Muhammad is getting on board Cotton Reel, and Cotton Reel just made a really big jump from his first to his second start. So you're probably anticipating another jump in him. And with 109 pounds, why would he not make that move? And then the Lovebug on my fourth line as well. Some experience. She is 5, running against these 4 and 3-year-old horses, but she's in good form. She's got 2 on the board finishes in her last 2 starts. So I think this is competitive on paper, but I really just want to believe that it's Charisma and everybody else. And we'll see how this one shapes out.
Let's start betting. Go to BarbadosTurfClub.org. Click betting and select mobile wagering information. To the left, click Start Betting. Enter your account and PIN to log in. Select Event. Then select the race followed by your bet type. And choose your bet amount. Select your horse or horses. When finished, click Bet, verify, and click Accept, and you're ready to win.
And we're going to move right on to the big one. It's the 43rd running of the Grade 1 Sandelane Barbados Gold Cup. And we've got a really competitive, internationally deep field gathered for the Cup this year.
Internationally deep is correct, Rashaun. We have the likes of Devon Propo, Abumar, Safi Joseph has sent not 1, not 2, but 3 shots at his chance of winning his second Gold Cup. We have Public Sector, who was an import, we can say, for last Gold Cup. Local horses like So Suave, Jerry Nipper, Smoking Tea, and Portfolio Company are also there or thereabout to make this race super interesting. Rashaun, now I realize as we go through our picks, we have just about the same four horses, but in a different order.
Yeah, I am going to take number one, Smoking Tea. I think it's time that the home team wins the Gold Cup again. I think this is going to be the first local winner since COVID. This one is obviously going to be a long shot. This was the favorite of last year's Gold Cup, and he's coming out of two runner-up finishes as the favorite on Boxing Day and in the Coolmore. And Smoking Tea now third off the bench. Boxing Day, where he lost to Public Sector, who first start in 6 months, where he made a first move and was very wide compared to Public Sector, who got a peach of a ride from Jalan Samuel. And he made that first move into a fast pace that was set by Anissa, while Public Sector got a perfect setup. And I think coming back in the Coolmore, Jared the Nipper was able to dictate on the front end and got really comfortable internal fractions. None of these two scenarios should be happening in the Gold Cup. He's drawn one, and Antonio Bishop can save ground the same way he did with Pussycat, as well as Jared Nipper's not going to get away with those fractions he did in the Coolmore. So I think that Smoking Tea is primed to be really competitive in this spot, and he will be very fair odds because every race since he's been in Barbados, he's been less than even money. And I think here you're going to get betting on Safi Joseph horses, Jalan Samuel in the Gold Cup. So this is the time to really capitalize on Smoking Tea losing favoritism, and I think you can get a good trip. Abrumar and Devon Propor are the two from Safi Joseph Jr. that I want, and preferably Devon Propor. I think the conversation, obviously, with these horses coming over, you're going to pick one or the other, but I think Devon Propor is a much better horse than Abrumar is. Rashid Hughes, obviously, on Abrumar makes one want to go on that one. And again, these are horses that you're splitting hairs to decide. Last 10 starts for Devon Propol. He spent 9 of them in Great Estates Company. And the last race he was in is the race that produced Harrow, who won our Gold Cup last year. So all that to say, I think Smoking Tea, who's come over with Great Estates form and over 10 wins in the US, plus Devon Propol, who has been in Great Estates Company and shown himself to be worthy of that, are the two horses that you want in the Gold Cup this year.
No, as you mentioned, these horses would have bought about maybe once or twice within the career. This is Devon Propol and Abrumar. Now we're here looking at the dinner party stakes. And one thing I must
see
highlight
Cash Equity, who was second in the dinner party here, was second in our Gold Cup in 2024, just to make it familiar, but you continue.
I've got you, and I was going to mention that because I was wondering how you could skip that. But when I look at the early fractions, I saw these horses did 27, they did 52 for a half mile. These horses were absolutely walking. And I think Abrumar was in a little bit of no man's land because the pace was so slow. This horse ended up on the front end. Now, usually he does sit just behind the leaders, Abrumar. And in his last start back at Gulf Stream, where he ran into a 22:45 half mile, he sat just off the pace and had to come with a sweeping move. Now, my three choices, Devon Propol, which also, in my opinion, is the best horse in the race. I think him, Abrumar, as well as Smoking Tea are going to work as a team just behind the pace setter, who I assume is actually going to be Deccan Prince. Jared Nipple, who does have the early speed also, I don't think he is quite fast enough or is able to set what we call 9 furlong sprinting speed. So I do think Deccan Prince and Rico Walker will go to keep the pace honest. Devon Propol, Abrumar, and Smoking Tea will sit just behind. But one thing I must highlight about my fourth place choice is Public Sector. And I think these three horses are going to get first run on Public Sector. Usually Gold Cup is won by who gets the last run, but I think that last run from Public Sector is just going to be in vain. I think he's going to be too far off. My issue with Smoking Tea, specifically your winner, as much as this horse has not run lower than second in any of his starts in Barbados, this horse has this habit that I can't get over. He gets to the leader, he gets to the pace setter and simply won't go by. And that is a problem for me. And I think two quality horses like Abrumar as well as Devon Propol, that's not going to change. I think he's going to be third at best.
Now, on Public Sector, then I'll come back to Smoking Tea and we can go into the Spa Sprint. I think with Public Sector, I just don't like the fact that he hasn't run since Boxing Day. Now, the connection said this was the plan coming out of Boxing Day, and they can do what they think is in the best interest of the horse. We saw this with Brave Star and Gandalf in 2019, and they were nowhere in the Gold Cup. I just would have loved to see him prep. Also, horses like So Swab, Pat Sewing Machine, and others usually run their big race right off the plane. So now that he's in Barbados, I think he's going to take a step back, having not prepped. Obviously, it's Jalan Samuel, and this is a really good horse, but I'm going to hold that as a negative against him. And then with Smoking Tea, I just think circumstances where the Gold Cup last year, don't think it was a great ride. Then with Boxing Day, got by Anissa, but when you make such an early move, you're going to fade late to the last round of public sector. And then no one was getting by Jared the Nipper, who was able to dictate up front. But this is as deep of a Gold Cup as we've had in a long time, and any one of these four could win, and I would not be surprised. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a really thrilling renewal of the Gold Cup. So we're gonna move right on to the Spa Sprint, which is right after the Gold Cup, and this is another race where I'm going to look to beat the favorite, but you're not. So tell us why, Anissa.
No, I'm usually the person in here that's trying to beat the favorite, but I don't think she will be beaten this time. But I'm assuming she's going to be favorite. Geelong being
No,
on
she's
Zazie, I do think
100%
some of the,
no. I don't know if the Geelong
I,
factor
I
is gonna be that much. She's gonna be favored.
come on, Geelong had Voldemort as favorite before. I think he can do
True,
anything.
true,
Um,
true, true.
but when I look at Anissa, especially how she's matured compared to her last Spa Sprint effort last year, I think this horse has graduated and has improved leaps and bounds from where she was. Now, she's obviously hasn't faced quote unquote the best sprinters in the island. What she has done is give a big run and a big effort at them going 7.8 Boxing Day. When you look back at those fractions, this horse ran 24 and change, 47 and 4, 115 and 2 for the 3/4 mile. She wasn't a winner here, but she did give an honest effort. And if she's able to outpace and show these that I can take it to them, there's no one in this Spa Sprint who can take it to her. I think she is and has become far better than these. Now, Zazie is a big question mark here. We don't know where she is now. She hasn't won in how long? She's moved to Gulfstream. She hasn't played. She's had a few races over there and it's been a bit unsuccessful. But we do know the class that she takes when she's in Barbados.
Yeah, on Anissa really quickly, I'm going to go against her for the point why you are picking her. So she runs on Boxing Day, going through grueling fractions, 24, 47, and then she comes back and she misses the Coolmore. This is a 3-0 filly on Boxing Day. She's now turned 4, and I think this is just the prime candidate for a horse you want to bet against, where she ran a very grueling race, missed her next prep, and now she's coming back in a race that obviously, on paper, she stands out, but I think this is just the kind of profile that you want to bet against. So I'm going to bet against her, but I respect her. And then with Zazie, obviously the Jalan factor. I love the fact that she has Jalan Samuel in the iron. She's looking fantastic by all reports in the morning. And she's had class. She's got class. So when she was here, she won her last 2 starts in Barbados. Obviously, going overseas to Gulfstream, as you said, it proved not to be a successful venture in her 2 starts over there. But coming back here, Zazie, the 127 pounds, it does not bother me in the slightest. I think this is going to be a very tough horse to beat for the Spa Sprint field. I'm going to try to beat her with what feels like a shot in the dark, but 2 Spa Sprints ago, this was not a shot in the dark, with the Spa Sprint winner of 2024 in Zaid, who has completely been up and down since winning the Spa Sprint. So his first time in the Spa, he crossed the line second, but he was disqualified. And then he came back and he won the next year. I think this horse, less than a year ago, he was in Spa winning form. Yeah, right. He was in Spa winning form back in June, where he beat Jared the Nipper, Caspian Sea. 4 starts since then. Obviously, he went 1,800 meters on Coolmore Day. I think you can draw a line through that. He probably doesn't want to go that far, and the conditions were terrible. But we're gonna
And I
look
think
back at
that's
his
a preference, but go
uh,
longer to come back shorter. I don't
right.
think
He
that
went in
was.
the right. He went in the Coolmore this year, and I think that was like fresh off the bench. His first race in September in 6 months. But then you go back to the 14th of February, where he got back to 1,100 meters, and this is a race where he finished 7th, but this is better than the 7th. He started moving at Brenner Pass, got into his way, and then he found the world of trouble in the stretch, and he was finishing, right? And I think it's going to be very interesting to see if he can get a clear run Horses who close in the spa sprint do really well. And then you can look and see that his rider, Kimari Blackett, was just looking for somewhere to go. And Zaid was finishing with interest. So now maybe more rust has been knocked off. And if this horse can find the form that was good to him to make him a spa runner up and a spa winner, why not Zaid? The good Zaid is the best horse in this race. So I'm interested to see what this horse is going to do for John Mark Cozier. Again, just looking for something to beat Anissa with, and I don't necessarily love a lot of the field in here.
I share the same sentence with you on Zaid. You know, if not him, who else? And I did pick Enisa because I'm taking the form horse. But when I look through the field and I'm trying to find a second place horse, it's really hard for me to choose between the two stablemates, Zaid and Zazie. Now, I only picked Zaid due to the fact that he's going to be a little bit more on par with local racing than Zazie. Zazie takes her class, but she has disappointed me a couple times once she's been over the weight of 120 pounds. So the 127 is a little concerning. Having Jay Samuel in the saddle does retain some of that confidence. On my
But
fourth line, I
on
did
that
end up
point,
with.
before you go there, it's like the same thing with
Go ahead.
public sector and in running that really big race off the plane. Maybe she's just a different animal now that she's gone overseas and gotten a little bit of a different training regime. Who knows? Maybe now the weight isn't an issue. And she runs a huge race off the plane.
I mean, that's completely possible. She is going to have to show me that is the situation at hand. But I think even on her worst day, her worst finishing position here is third. Miss Anya, though, Miss Anya, I had to put in for fourth because, you know, when this horse was over at Hopefield, I guess they had their own specific issues with her or whatnot. But she did switch hands into Sean Hall, and this horse, under her first start, showed leaps and bounds of improvement. She did only have 112 pounds, where in that same replay with Major Dan and Zaid you just showed, she led them for about 5 furlongs over the race. And this is a horse knocking rust off of herself completely. And she gave a very, very creditable effort. So maybe she is good enough for fourth, but let's see how that goes. To close out the day, we have the Villa at Sandelane Trophy going 5.5 furlongs. And Rashaun, we spoke about races having depth. Talk about ability in this race. It is so hard to find a single winner in this.
Yeah, this one is very solid. This is a race that your appetite still is right after the Gold Cup and the Spa Sprint. This has a lot of the who's of future stars like Soleil Levant. And it's going to be interesting to see how this one checks out with her continuing to take on older horses. I'm going to go in the opposite direction. I respect Soleil Levant. I think she has the world of talent. But I'm going to take number 8, Dr. B, off the bench. 84 days off. He ran last in December. And this is a horse who has figured out how to win races, right? He's won his last 3 starts very impressively. One thing about him is that he's able to figure out how to make a good trip. He carves out good trips. He actually won his last 4 starts. So this is a horse that's just in ripping form. The layoff, the little break does not bother me because this is a horse that won his first start. So I think he would be able to fire off the bench. What is the thing that quite literally tipped the scale in his favor over a horse like Soleil Levant is the potential to take 109 pounds. Again, where Blackett ends up close to this 109 versus Soleil Levant, who is at 120 pounds. I think that difference, if Dr. B can continue working out good trips, will be the difference maker. So I'm going to take Dr. B off the bench to continue his winning ways. Soleil Levant is probably the best horse in this race. We can look back at this race next year and be like,
this is another favorite you're trying to beat.
Exactly. Like this is she's really good. And then I'm gonna take number 5, Donna Strubling, cutting back underneath. Then number 9, Queen of the South, coming off the bench. This one is a really good sprinter. And then number 10, Awesome Mike, making his first start. I just think it's a little noteworthy that Ricky Walcott opts to get on board making his second start, opts to get on board this one as opposed to Etta James. And obviously the big alarm is that I don't want anything to do with Paper Trail in this spot. No, the good Paper Trail more than likely can win this, but I just have a bad taste in my mouth from his last race where he wasn't able to close out at 6-5, loose on the lead, and was run down by Lovely and Donald Strubling. Maybe issues, but with the presence of Renee and Etta James, how am I supposed to be confident that a horse that was just loose and dealing with his issues that force him to miss the Spa Sprint is going to be the field that's this deep?
That's absolutely fair. Now, I stuck with horse number 4, Soleil Levant, who's on the improving trend. This horse is a filly that dismissed Mystic Rain, who just looked at the 80s and lowers and blew them away by almost the entire stretch. So there's absolutely no question where this horse's talent lies. Now it's just to see where she puts her best foot forward going against a bigger field of 12. Mentioning a bigger field of 12 is the exact reason that I did not pick Dr. B. Dr. B has run through fields of 6, 7, and 8. We're now going 12 quality horses. So Levant, who has a brilliant draw, I think she needs to be engaged early. I think she needs to be chased after early. She needs to get the lead and get away and out of trouble. But as it has shown before in her last start with Etta James, as long as you keep her up to her task, she's going to answer every question you ask. So Levant, who has 120 pounds, and Paper Trail, who does have the claim of 5, who's going to go to post at 122. Dr. B has a potential, as you said, at 109. This is my first 3. Zeba is a horse I'm interested in seeing, a daughter of War of Will. We're seeing a lot of class stallions producing horses down here. Well, I should say we're purchasing from class stallions. But Donna Strubling and Jalon Samuel, you mentioned that you had as an outsider?
No, I have her third. I think cutting back. She ran 15-70 last time, showed good speed. I think cutting back with that foundation, plus Jalon Samuel getting on board will be good for her.
That's going to put her at 65. I have her on my 4th line. And to close out my top 5, I went with the old boy coming from, I can't even call him the old boy because he's not even close to the oldest in here. But I went with horse number 12, Renee. Mr. Faithful, should I call him? Etta James, I'm not very interested in due to the fact she's jumping from box 11 and Ricky Walker isn't interested in the ride. But he does jump on horse number 10, who's 1 box lower, Awesome Mike. I'm not sure what he sees in this one, but I'm going to keep a keen eye out for that. And so that brings our preview for the Sandelane Barbados Gold Cup Race Day to an end. We thank you for tuning in to Pillar to Post, and good luck with all of your bets.
Yeah, same sentiment here. Thank you so much for tuning in to Pillar to Post, as always, and we are grateful for that. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and on X, and subscribe to our YouTube. And as always, may all your tickets be winning ones.